You're listening to Off to Market with Scott Farley and Hamish Chadwick.
Hi, I'm Hamish.
And I'm Scott.
And this is Off to Market, and this week we are talking about commercialisation. Obviously, everything that we've been talking to up to this point is all about commercialisation, but there's a few things that we would like to cover today that we think you should know about. So Scott, do you want to lead us in?
Sure. So we just had a fairly mundane section all about basically engineering the part. So really where we're at now, we have actually a physical prototype that you can test and describe and demonstrate and, you know, get a lot of feedback from, get investors involved or whatever. And now I guess the key is, how do you actually get that into the market? What sales pipeline? How do you make money out of it? Was it even worth the effort? And Hamish is going to be really heavily involved in this section, because really he's the key to that. You know, obviously setting up the first arrangement or the first deal or the first person you might be wanting to speak to is crucially important. And, you know, I've had situations where I've taken one of my own projects to a distributor that you don't really even know is not set up correctly to do a national sales program or an international sales program. But until you get involved with it, you really have to ask a lot of questions about how the structure of the company is set up to be able to distribute your product. So these are
You just covered an awful lot there, Scott. Just go back a step. When you say whether something's not right for national distribution, what do you? Can you give me an example?
Yeah, okay. So I guess we're at a fork in the road now. We've got plenty of options. You can take so many different routes at this point on how to get this product to market, and which road you take can be crucially important. So you really got to investigate the road you're taking, so that, you know, it's really flattering to have someone say, yeah, we're going to distribute your product. But in a situation where, well, I don't want to get too specific because it's a little bit fragile, but and the people involved are lovely people, but the situation was, you know, the product sold really well in one state because of the structure of the setup of the employee. The person who was selling it really well was employed by the company distributing it. In the other states, they were all reps, and my product was a lot cheaper than the general product they were selling. So the rep was faced with a choice: do I sell a $300 product and make $30 commission, or do I sell it, in my situation, my product was only worth $3 and make 30 cents? You know, it's a no-brainer that it didn't sell in other states, but until we were 2 or 3 years into it, we didn't understand why it wasn't selling in other states, and was selling really well in Queensland. So crucially important to make the right decisions here. And there are so many options, you know, and whichever option you take, it's going to take marketing and persistence and distribution and all that logistics to go along with selling something, advertising, everything. But you may choose to take a role where you take a royalty, and so you present to a multinational your product and they go and do all the hard work and marketing and everything. Or you could decide, I'm going to sell this online, and you've got to do all the marketing and distribution and logistics. So plenty of options there. There's a few offhand are you know, the royalty, which where you develop your product, you solve all the problems, you physically prototype it, you solve all the technical issues, you get all the cost factors involved, so you go and get your quotes and all the rest of it, and you can go and do some market testing just to solve that problem as well, because is the market going to like it? It's another big thing that, you know, you have to solve off. And you go and take that package along to a multinational with a similar product range and a distribution network you like, and you go, look, are you interested in this product? If so, would you pay me a royalty to take on the manufacturing, all the legal battles that might happen, all the IP costs, all the logistics, all the marketing, do it all, and leave me, you know, very little risk, and just pay me a small percentage of the sales. And, you know, the pie that you're selling into is very big, and you're taking a small slice of it. But, you know, if you consider that you did all the sales yourself, you might only ever get to the small pie, and you'd have 100% of that small pie, or you can have a small percentage of the big pie. It's can work out quite well in the end, sometimes royalties. The negatives are, you know, obviously you're relying on someone else to do that for you if they don't push it.
Well, yes, and I've had some experience with this, working with someone where they've got to put different hats on. I mean, inventors spend so much time worrying about their product, making sure that it's good, that it's working, that it's actually solving the problem. But then when you decide to go down you've chosen the road that you want to go down, which is not licensing, so you're going to handle all the sales yourself. All of a sudden you're having to deal with people like retailers, and I had to explain to this person, they were getting very frustrated having to deal with retailers, and all they wanted to know was what is my margin, and she was saying, well, it cost me X, and I said, no, you really can't use that argument. They're not interested in what it's cost you. They're interested in how you're going to help them. Is it going to make them money? Is it going to be worth sitting on my shelf? So that's a whole different approach and a different set of circumstances that you have to take into consideration. So the marketing has to not just be to people that are going to ultimately benefit from that product, but you're also selling, again, this is just another consideration of audience, is it's not just investors after that. You're selling to retailers, convincing them that these are the margins that we're offering you. We've thought about this. You'll be able to sell it at such a volume, at such a rate, and we're supporting you with marketing material. So all of a sudden, again, if you want to go down the licensing road, you're giving those sorts of controls for marketing, essentially, to that company. They will put all the money in. But if you go down and you want to go down the other road, which is taking it all in-house, you control that and you sell it from your own, say, website or own distribution point, or you get your own warehouse, whatever, you have to handle all that, and that becomes an expense, and you have to make sure you get a return.
Yeah, and that's why we did discuss earlier, it's crucial to make those decisions really early in the piece, because you might find it's actually not viable. You might want to meet a certain design criteria, and it outprices the product, and so you go right through the process of this. Go to put it on retail shelves, and the retailer will say, no, it's too expensive, it's not in that bar. So
well, and also another,
know those prices first, and then work your product towards it. Don't make it too complicated if it's going to be a real commodity item, and don't make it too make it more complicated if you know it's going to be a premium product and sell it at a premium price. Basically, when you manufacture the thing, it has to suit the final market, 4 times rate, to allow for options as far as wholesaling or direct sale.
Well, the other thing that is often a rude shock to most people is distribution costs, and even things as simple as postage. If you and that's the great benefit of huge organisations like Amazon, is their great power comes not just from having a massive warehouse, it's the costs that they can control and the pressure that they can put on distribution networks, whether it's couriers, to give them very good flat fees to distribute this stuff to people. If you just want to go out on your own and sell one at a time, well, then you're paying postage one at a time, and often, and I've seen this before, the cost of postage equals or outweighs the actual cost of the product. So if you're going to market and selling something for, let's just say, $5 and the postage is $10, well, then the perception of value, all of a sudden you've got a $15 product, but you can sort of tell people until you're blue in the face, it's only $5, but no, it's 15 when you add on the postage. So do people make the decision to purchase that product? Unfortunately, sometimes they'll look at it and sit in their shopping cart and they'll think, well, does that equal good value? This is a $15 product. No, it's a $5 product. So you've got to look at that as well, as whether you're going down a road where, yes, it's a great product, but the way you price it, you have to be very careful there too. You're better off actually pricing a product. Let's just say all you want to make out of it is X, and to make X, after manufacturing costs, after design costs, is $5. However, because of the way you want to distribute it, you really should be pricing that product at $30, because then it will outweigh the distribution costs. So the actual price of postage seems insignificant. However, if it's a very cheap product, the perception is that is it really worth it if it's going to cost that much to send. And again, this is another area that is a concern with products that are able to be patented, is that they are new, they are unique. You want people to look at them and say, yes, I need that, but if a barrier to that sale is going to be things like postage, well then that's just another barrier that you're going to have to fight. And that's why I think you've got to think very, very carefully about how you're going to distribute your product.
It's a funny one, that, isn't it? And this is the question you might be able to answer for me, but I quite often see that people aren't really dissuaded by that barrier. They could go to the shop and buy a fishing lure for $27 and not pay and pay no freight or whatever, or they can buy it online for $27 and pay the $5 freight or $6 freight. Sometimes in Australia it's $8. It doesn't seem to be such a barrier. I mean, I probably look at it and go, yeah, well, I don't think I really consider it that much. So usually, if I want something, it just seems to be, well, it's not the retailer's fault. It's just another cost on top, like paying GST or something. So, do you find the same thing? I know there's certain things in retail which are sort of queer, like you haggle over the price of a TV, and then you just go and buy a mount, and they reckon they make more money on the mount because they sell it for full retail. And it's overpriced than they did on the TV, because the TV, you haggled them so badly, and it's a competitive market. But the mount they make more money on than the TV, so that's where they make their money.
Well, of course, but I think
cars, accessories, and things.
There is a concept called shopping cart abandonment, and I'm really just talking about online sales. I mean, yes, I know if you walk into a store, you pay $27 for a fishing lure. That's
certainly
fine.
I do it if I got to get something from overseas and it's just exorbitant. But generally, locally, I don't usually blink an eye, but it is adding to the price of the product.
Yeah,
you don't really seem to consider it.
No, it's not. But it's just it is something that I've had clients tell me that they've experienced, is that people say, I really want the product, but I can't. I had a look at it, but I've seen the cost of postage. And look, ultimately, some of these international situations where, which is important though. I mean, if you want to try and get your product out there and get reviews from people overseas, you've got to be able to sell overseas. But does that mean that part of your job then is to look at those markets, adjust your marketing approach specifically for those markets? So take into consideration perhaps language use, language barriers, which can be
distribution. We use 3PL or even sometimes Amazon, because Amazon's got the system, ship a pallet to Amazon and they look after it from there. It's like your middleman rather than going through a distributor over there. But that's a great thing about distributors over there. You ship to the distributor and they do all the rest.
That's right, but that's where their power and their value comes into play. Is that distribution?
But it's got to be considered really early in the piece. Well, most products we do in Australia really have to be designed for international sales, so it has to come into the conversation early. All this sort of information.
Well, and I think that's another interesting concept too. Is that a lot of perhaps people haven't considered international markets until they start getting approached by overseas customers or agents. Yeah, so that's another interesting one. Another interesting concept as well is at what point do you consider international sales?
Really early. We always consider it first meeting. First meeting.
Okay.
What do you want out of it? Because we have this thing, I've heard it called the tyranny of scale. If you can make a product work in Australia, you can make it pretty much work in everywhere in the world, as long as it's not culturally too diverse for them. But we have to ship vast distances. We've got a very multicultural country, and so a lot of test products are made initially started off in Australia. If they work in Australia,
is that because we're a hard sell? Is that?
I think we are a little bit of a hard sell. We're good early adopters. We've always had more phones than everyone per capita. We always had more fish finders than everyone per capita, more cars, newer cars. But so we're good at early adopters. But yeah, I think it is hard to get the product out to people because it's got such big distances to travel. I know the packaging industry is almost based on our country, because it's got a very high pressure containment, 110 psi, and yet it never usually gets to that heat, that pressure, unless the semi parks in the middle of the Nullarbor Plains, and the truck driver goes for lunch, and the heat of the truck gets so hot that the cans get the pressure. So there's lots of things that Australia is like the worst case scenario for.
Right.
Yeah.
So designing and developing a product in Australia is a good.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Start.
Yeah, it's good. Plus, we're isolated, so big multinationals don't get the egg on their face if it fails.
Oh, okay.
Through Europe. But anyway, so let's just go through a couple of the options there. Yep. So we've talked about royalties, which is a really great option. A lot of the anything that's really sophisticated. We've got a product that I've been working on for 15 years. It's one of my in-house ones, so I can speak about it, but. To set that up is around about $350 million. It's a packaging product, and there's no way we can raise that sort of capital for it. So we are totally reliant. Our whole business plan is reliant on partnering with a big brewer and making and offsetting those costs up with them. It's a really high quantity product, so it actually makes sense to have a good royalty on it. So that's one that really works for that situation. There's no other option really. A lot of products we designed to try and have fallbacks. Oh, here comes the siren. Came and went. A lot of times we have a fallback on them, so we design it for a certain avenue. So we might go we figure out what the finances are, what the resources are. We might design it for a royalty situation. If the royalty situation doesn't work out, like you approach a multinational and it can't be done, we try and allow another option to do either distribution, to go through a distribution network. So basically a distribution network is the sales pipeline is another company doing the same or a similar thing who already has all the distribution network in place, and you go and pollinate their network with your product. So you approach them and say, we'll manufacture the thing and we'll distribute it through you. Usually it means you have to get another partner involved to invest in the tooling part of it and the manufacturing part of it. But usually when you've got a really nice working prototype and you've proved you've taken a lot of risk out of it, it's not that difficult to do. Well, I find it difficult to do. Some people find it easy to do. That's not my area. Getting investors is actually I find quite difficult. But a lot of people find it very easy. But once you have a nice working prototype that's tested and easy to demonstrate, it becomes a lot easier. Certainly a lot easier than an idea. And then the third sort of way of getting to market is just going direct yourself. Mm-hmm. You manufacture it. Mm-hmm. You go to retailers, or you go online and you sell it yourself. That's probably the most cost and labour intensive. You're basically buying yourself a job then. Some people want a job. They want out of their own job, and that's the way they want to do it. Other people want to sit back and just keep working or not work at all and just do the royalty thing. They might want to be involved in manufacture but not very good at selling, so they want to manufacture and go through a distributor. All good options, but it's nice to have the option to, in either situation, you've always got fallbacks. Like if you go to a multinational and it doesn't work out, you can't get a royalty deal in place, you now have a really nice product that you can demonstrate very easily if you want to get an investor involved and go through a distribution network. So you do the manufacturing yourself, go through distribution. If that doesn't work, you can get further investment and manufacture yourself and sell it yourself. Fallbacks, always good to have ways out. And as I said, there's some situations, and I'll just outline that risk. With our packaging product, we've only got one option here. And we can never afford to go to market unless it's a very small scale. And with that product, it'd be deadly to go small scale, because as soon as other people saw that, they'd try and you'd never be able to satisfy the whole market, because it's multinational, international, and the quantity is so massive that the pressure on that product would be so huge that someone would try in some way to get around what you've done and do something different, mm-hmm. just to fill the gap, the need. So interesting times and lots of options, and very important to discuss this sort of stuff early in the piece, as we talked about the very first podcast we did. Get the plan right first and stick to it. People that change plans halfway through at this point end up in a lot of trouble.
Mm. Oh well, yeah, there's a lot of money that has to be spent. So yeah,
you can jeopardise your patent strategy. You can jeopardise a lot of things by going to market too early, or making things public when they haven't been patented, to a certain level. All these sort of things have to be taken into consideration. So all that sort of stuff we talk about in the first meeting. The first two hours of meeting with me, it usually takes about 2 hours to go through a project and find out what everyone wants out of it. Crucial, really, really important.
Yep.
Yeah. Good. Anything more to add from your side? I mean, what have you seen as far as commercialisation options and things that work and things that, I mean, you're probably more involved with people who've gone and tried to do it themselves, because that's your area, you go and market stuff. But I know you have, from talking to you, I know you have individual inventors, startups, and you also have big commercial entities. I guess there's probably two sides of the coin there, but I've heard you talk about people I've put you in touch with who've gone out and done their own thing and tried to sell the product themselves. That's where a lot of marketing comes in, a lot of hand holding through the logistics of trying to get that product priced right, marketed right, the message right.
Yeah, I think
and the logistics of actually getting it to the person who's buying it.
Well, and that's interesting, and that's the thing. It's often a very interesting journey for all involved. But I think from what I've learned is that if you, like you've just said before, I think that's a great way of putting it. Is a lot of people will buy themselves a job when they invent a product, because it becomes their little baby.
It can be a challenging job too, very, very full on.
Well, it is, because they're confronted very, very quickly
Yep.
with people that and concepts they've never had to deal with. And again, like if I go back to the dealing with retail, I mean, you just look at if you have a product and you can see where your product is going to sit in a particular shop, that's great. But you walking into that shop as a consumer is very different to walking in as
100%.
someone that has a product that wants to put something on that shelf, because all of a sudden then you're asked questions like, well, what is the recommended retail
you're
price?
basically buying a space.
Well,
and if that space you're buying is not making that shop owner money,
that's right.
it's almost like selling retail.
It is.
That shop is almost selling a space. A space.
And it's very cutthroat.
Making money.
It's extremely
if your
cutthroat.
product doesn't make money, then he's just going to take that out, replace it with another one. He or she, sorry.
And the thing is with that, and that's the other thing too, is if you're very close to a product, you're not. Obviously, if you engage a representative to work for you, they'll go in and try and push that product for you, and they won't have any sort of emotional tie to it. But often, I've had to calm people down because they've walked into a shop and they've said, "Would you like to sell it?"
Yeah.
And they get confronted with all these questions. Like, well, what's my margin? What are you selling that for? And then the other question is too, if you're doing your own thing, are you a competitor of that shop? If you're selling it yourself, then are you asking the retailer to sell it for slightly more? Are they going to have to price it so it's slightly more expensive than what you have it listed, say, on your website? Because they have to make a margin, and what you're selling, what your recommended retail price to them is there. They've worked out that the margin isn't high enough, and then you've got to think about
if you need unique product. That the retailer will ask you, how are you going to promote this product, because no one knows about it yet.
That's right.
How are you going to guarantee sales? So you're going to have to put a marketing strategy in place. We're going to push it in this avenue, radio, newspaper, TV, whatever, to guarantee that the turnover is going to be.
And obviously, if you get products that are unique, the retail space that you're wanting to go into, often just the very fact that you're within that space is enough to promote that product, especially if it's a small retail shop. But if you're thinking of the likes of Bunnings or something like that, those sorts of places, it seems, it almost at the outset would seem fanciful just to think you can ring Bunnings and say, hey, I've got a great product, stick it on your shelf, because that's not how they operate at all. They're more likely to approach you if they think there's anything in it. That's really how that works. Because they're just very controlling with what they're making money on. You're talking about
every square inch has to be making profit.
Well, another thing too is that you might have heard people talk about things like products that are cost leaders. All that means is that that's a product that they have in store which attracts people into that shop, and they're actually buying customers. So Bunnings or whoever it is, JB Hi-Fi, might sell. I had a mate that worked in retail, and he said that most of the Apple products in his store were cost leaders because Apple dictated the price, and all they were using, the only reason they wanted Apple products in their store was to get people in, and hopefully they bought some other peripheral material, whether it's printer cartridges or getting some printing done. That's where this shop made their money. But on the actual Apple products, Apple is very, very controlling, and they will not allow you to, you can't go out and find an Apple laptop which is $200 more than another store. It just won't happen because they control that to the dollar.
Right.
So shops will actually, and they know that. That's the power of big successful products like that. They know their own value, and they know that people want them in their shops to actually get people in the door. The retail environment is another level altogether, and if people haven't been exposed to it from the business side of it, it's often quite confronting, and they have to be prepared. So things like price lists. So if you're walking into a shop, you're not just talking to them about individual sale prices, individual unit sales. You're saying, well, if you buy up to 50, it will cost you this, and there's X margin. Let's just say there's only 5% margin in it for you. However, if you buy bulk from me and buy 500 to 1,000 or 10,000, well then, as you can see the way we've done our pricing up, you'll be able to make 25% as your markup. So there's those considerations to work out first before you go and approach these people, because it's not a very good look to walk in, be confronted by all this, and then have to go away with your tail between your legs and then work it all out. Yeah. Talk to someone who knows who's done this before, and often it's not an accountant.
Get a strategy before you go and meet.
Yeah, so just get a strategy in place, because your pricing again and your price list becomes your critical part of your marketing. It's not just the pretty pictures that surround it, and that's what I'm always saying to people. Brand message at this point of the game has got very little to do with visual image and nice pictures and even nice packaging. It's all to do with what's the margin on it, what's the value proposition, do you know exactly who's going to be buying this, and can you answer all these questions very quickly when you're going to talk to people, because otherwise you will just have to end up selling it solely on your own, and that's another game altogether, which is certainly very much buy yourself a job.
Yeah.
It's very hard work.
Yeah.
So it's, but it's all fun. But there's a lot to consider.
Yeah, for sure. It's a bit of a adventure. That's what I
Certainly
look at it. I say, well, you're buying yourself a job, but also your life's going to be more adventurous than old mate down the street who's working for his boss.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's exactly what's going to happen.
And that's the thing.
Life is just an adventure.
Well, and they say, the
classic.
classic thing I always hear is, people are saying to me it's high risk. But I was making this comment the other day to someone. I said, well, a lot of the employment that you have nowadays is all contract based. So it's, if you've got a standard job somewhere, it's on a contract.
Even government jobs are not
That's right.
guaranteed anymore.
Sorry, we're not politicising our podcast
No,
here,
but it's just
the concept of
in
having...
fact, you've got control over your destiny.
That's right.
when you run your own setup. So
nothing is certain.
that's right. Nothing's really certain, and it's great fun.
It is.
It really is. Keeps you on your toes. You learn a hell of a lot.
So if we're putting you off, that's fine. But if we're actually encouraging you, that's also fine, because that's what this is all about.
And you've got choices. You can always go on the holiday.
Oh, we always come back to this. Yes, I think we're interviewing a travel agent next
Renovate
week.
the kitchen. Put a pool in.
Put a pool in, jeez.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, that's been well covered off.
So is there anything else you want to mention there, Scott?
I think we're good. I mean, I'd like to see some feedback from people who listen to this now, and maybe we can drill into certain areas, or we can maybe sit down together and decide on areas.
Yeah, I think we should maybe officially
detail.
ask. Yeah, if we just officially ask now that look, go to our
It's
Facebook.
all about trying to impart our knowledge of over the years to people who are trying to start new ventures and do product development or startups in general. So yeah, if it comes from the listeners, it'd be great. But if not, we can certainly look at areas we've glossed over, delve deeper into them. There's a lot more detail that goes into every one of these podcasts that we haven't been able to cover off on, and we can certainly drill down into those certain areas. I know that are sort of difficult areas that need more explanation. I can certainly pick out of it and go into in more detail. I'm sure you're the same.
Yeah, sure. No, I think if we just encourage everyone who's listening to this, if you've got any questions, head over to our Facebook page and just send us a post or whatever. Just leave a message anywhere. Start a conversation with us, and we'll answer the questions
in your area. And we're happy to dig into it.
Yes, absolutely.
Chat on about nothing.
So
all day long.
Ask us. No question is silly. So we will answer anything. So that'd be good.
Good stuff. Well, that sort of ends the series, the first part of our series. We had 10 or 11 topics to cover, but because of the mundaneness of the CAD development engineering part of it, I've just wrapped them into 3, and then we've covered off the last one there. So we've pretty much covered all 10 of the topics, or 11 of the topics, because you put a naming one in there as well, in the series, but we will add more scintillating.
Right, yes. I think those episodes I've marked as they're the relaxation episodes, so if you need to drift off to sleep of an evening.
Don't be driving when you're watching.
We listen to Scott, that's right.
Disclaimer. Talk soon.
You've been listening to Off to Market with Scott Farley and Hamish Chadwick.